Welcome to a special meeting of the Ojai City Council, Parks and Recreation Commission, August 12th, 2014. Roll call.
Councilmember Black?
Here.
Councilmember Clapp is not here at the moment. Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith is not here. Mayor Strobel?
Present.
Commissioner Basar?
Here.
Commissioner Becker?
Here.
Commissioner Ford?
Here.
Commissioner Ittner?
Here.
Commissioner Roddick is not here at the moment. Vice Chair McCory Rylander?
Here.
And Chair Haney.
Here.
Okay. Cindy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, tonight's meeting is a workshop session, and we have an agenda here, Vision for Recreation, and under that, programs, facilities, capital improvement plan, long-term versus short-term needs, Sarasota Park plan update. And I'm not sure who we want to lead out. How about
Well,
Chair Haney?
there you go. I guess I'll lead. We collectively came to, as a group, and we came up with these line items that we'd like to discuss tonight. I think the programs got listed at the top, but I don't have a sense that we have a lot to say about that. Sophocles has just been doing an incredible job at the Recreation Center, and obviously with the support of Steve and the city manager, they just the recreation program is just excelling right now. Attendance is up, programming is up, everyone is having a good time. So there's not much more to say about that. What we did want to talk
Before
about.
you go on, is there council member or commissioners, would you like to make a comment regarding programs?
I have a question. Why do you think other than Sophocles, of course, why do you think enrollment's up? In programs, attendance is up in the programs. Do you have any idea why that is?
Well, I'd probably say, well, there's more likely, well, let's start with the economy. It's better. The second thing is the programming that's being offered is more versatile. The reduction in fees was pretty big for the out-of-towners. So that's three factors, just right off the top of my head. I'm sure Sophocles and Steve could speak more to it.
Well, and
But-
marketing.
And
There's been a
marketing
real
is
effort to
up.
work
We
on
have a Facebook page.
people and use a variety of different marketing tools that we weren't before.
Like the Facebook page?
Right.
Yes, and postcards, and just trying to communicate with people in a variety of different ways and really reach out
Right.
and make people aware of what's out there.
You know, the open house was huge. There's just a multitude of reasons why. They're all, there's not one thing that stands out as that's the reason. But more importantly is the numbers are up, the programming's up, the children are happy, the parents are even happier. And just,
Updated facilities, and also Sophocles has also worked
Mike?
with other facilities and programs and brought them to Sarasota. And maybe Sophocles can update on that.
Yeah, it has helped to join forces as we did with AYSO. So we've had the five-a-side program, and there were two programs in the valley for a little while, but now we partnered with AYSO to make it one program, so that's helped a lot. We brought back the flag football program. That was vital for us too. So, and we brought in a wilderness program as well. Partnered with Ventura Wild, and that program was very successful this summer. Brought in huge numbers, waitlisted kids because it was so popular. So adding program and CrossFit was a big addition, and the numbers have soared in that area. And as Randy mentioned, it's partially probably due to the economy getting better, but also that the marketing push and putting those postcards out and just getting our name out there more. And we plan on doing the open house again.
And would
Because
you-
because it was so successful, that open house, for those who attended. It was quite nice, yeah.
And what would you say would be is lacking in programming at this point that could make it even better?
We always feel like the teen side of things, we could do a better job, and even adult offerings. So it's hard to pull teens into the rec department for whatever reason. They are busy with their school during the regular school year. They're just so busy with school. I think that could be part of it. But we do get teens that participate, but not as much as we'd like.
Well, then I have one more
Yeah,
question. And then
yes.
Austin, do you have any idea what would bring teens in more?
I know the marketing really helped with, I mean, I noticed it a lot, the Facebook page and the postcards, but
Is there a
maybe more
program?
towards the teens. I like going to the high school. And high schools would definitely help a lot. But Sophocles is right with the high school. At least for me, it's hard to do sports. I stopped doing rowing because I was just too flooded with high school. So that definitely plays a factor during the school year. But during the summer, that's kind of the time to attack, and that's what the summer programs are.
Can you
really
think of a
essential to-
program that could be added that would be irresistible?
Irresistible.
I know, it's tough, isn't it?
I think this
No.
plays really perfectly, go ahead, Randy.
Right, right. I just wanted to say two things to that, though. You know, we have there's a sense, I think, in the community for the Recreation and Parks program to be about young kids and young programming. And I think that that's an area that we absolutely can improve in, like offering writing programs for young teenagers, or you know, engaging and offering for that 15, 16, and 17-year-old that maybe isn't driving, that still needs to be dropped off, or isn't an athlete at Nordhoff or at one of the other high schools. So that is something that we've talked about in depth. The other thing about why we've bounced back is I think that there's less competition, and there's a more stable staff. But the less competition is huge. You know, we're getting a lot of the things back that someone had appropriated from us years ago, and that's no longer, they're not in the valley anymore. They're not competing. So those people have those folks that were with that entity have come back and are extremely happy with what they're having now and what they're receiving as far as the direction from the recreation staff.
Yeah, I think also being televised, you know, we're able to, Sophocles shares every time we meet what's going on with programming and
Right.
the pool, the relationship with Villanova and having the swimming pool during the summer, bringing in people that need, you know, to swim, that can't afford the club. And also with Smart Starts closure, I think that really affected the day camps, having an option for working parents to have a place to go for their kids during the day that's affordable.
And I think there's
Fun.
another part of that question. One side was, why are we doing better? And then the other question you're asking is, what can we do to be
Yeah.
better? And I think that plays into part of what the theme is tonight, which is, what is the vision for Parks and Recreation? And I think the questions you're asking need to be asked of a much broader base. It's great to, and Austin has great feedback, but I think that is one of the questions. I don't know that we know where our gaps are all the time because we haven't really well queried our public on what they need and gotten together with focus groups and planned with those people. What is it we'd like to see? As a group of teens, you know, you get a big group together
Yeah.
from a diverse background and you have them brainstorm. Because we are brainstorming at a table with adults and one teen. And I think but that plays into the next part of some of our agenda items, which is planning. And how do we, and programming is on here because program is part of the system of Parks and Recreation. I mean, we have the very facilities side of it and what facilities we have and how we maintain and keep that and how we plan forward for what we want. But the other side of that is programming. And part of that programming is not just what we offer, but what are the facilities we need to offer those things that people are most interested in. And so I think, for me, this leads into the rest of what we have on our
Right.
discussion for our list. But it's a great question, and one I don't think we have an answer to.
Dimitri, come on, you want to speak on this?
Not to do Usually I live here. But I'm a contractor with the rec department. I guess I'm the only one here. What I see, and I presented before, as far as programming, for instance, I would like to see the digital media programs at the rec department be offered through the recreation department. I mean, through the high school, through the recreation department, for programming to go on to the television channel, because you have many professionals here who can teach media arts that would go to adults as well as the kids who are in high school. So that's something I would think would be good. I teach most of the children in town theater, and I do that through the school district. Even with my help, last year I taught 60 kids. This year I taught 80 at Topa Topa School during the daytime. And I've been talking with Sophocles for a while now. Can we use those facilities during the daytime to get kids to come in and teach classroom things with the students there? That's one thing. And also, well, just more of a collaboration with the school district. One thing that was a standing agreement was using facilities between the school district and the city. And that at some point stopped happening. That's something too. But more outreach in general to the schools and offering more programming that can't be allowed in schools through the recreation department. I think that's something too. And as far as teens, the Shakespeare Festival, that was once a big part of Nordhoff High School, is gone. That's something that could come back. And I guess in general, all of the arts through the recreation department can be utilized more.
Or enhanced.
Or enhanced, yes. So that's all I have to say on that
I
matter.
have a question. With Time Warner, Rob, maybe you can answer this question for me. With Time Warner, we have the franchise fees. And I know we had an agreement. I'm a little perplexed at where that stands right now. It's about $45,000 a year. Is it, or is it not?
So I'm happy to answer that question for you. We've been negotiating a new draft agreement with the school district, and I just received word back from the district superintendent that they are okay with what we've discussed and proposed. So we anticipate we'll be getting that scheduled to bring that back before the city council. The concept that was given blessing by the city council was to come up with a plan that would where the city and the school district would divide up those funds each fiscal year so that each entity would at least get 25% of the funds. That way there's at least some assurance that you know that you can tackle certain things during any given fiscal year. And so we anticipate bringing that forward hopefully in the next month or so. And if council approves that, we would ask to approve that agreement retroactive back to July 1st. And then that would cover the payments beginning with this fiscal year. We had previously agreed with the school district to retain the first two payments of 2014 so that we could address some immediate capital needs for the city. And so we've been able to get those funds and put that to work. So that's where that stands. And
Well, the reason I'm asking is I know that this money can be used for media, correct? It's for government, education, and
it's right. It's an EG.
Public.
It's
Right.
education and governmental channel.
well, this is where I'm
right.
going with this. Could that money be put to the recreation department to develop a media arts offering in the recreation department, particularly, you know, your video, your Photoshop, your Illustrator, your WordPress, and things like that. To me, that would be something that teens would be drawn to. And there's very little of that offered at the junior college level, virtually nothing. Graphics is really hard to get in this community unless you pay private colleges like Brooks.
And at Nordhoff, you have to, it's a 3-year wait. I think you
Yeah,
have to be in 11th
exactly,
grade. after
yeah. So if that money could instead be dedicated to developing a program at the Park and Recreation Department and a media arts program there, is that something that would be allowable with those funds?
I know that we can use the funds to buy equipment that provides the programming on Channel 10 and also towards the development of the programming, because obviously that's what we're using That's why we're giving the PEG funds to the school district so that they can develop programming for Channel 10. I don't know if you would be able to go so far as to, well, I think you could probably pay an instructor and do something like that. We'd have to check on the exact details of how far that could go, but basically it's got to be used to support the Channel 10. So
You
I
could
so I
you could
so I think
construct something
that's
that does that
so
within that program.
I think it would fall within the bounds of that, basically.
Okay, well, I think it's worth looking into, because that to me is a way to get teens at this point is with technology.
Well, and it's an opportunity for partnership with the school district.
Exactly. To me, it's a perfect match.
Anyone else in the public wish to make a comment? Council? Commissions? I'll just say that I think a great deal of our improvement has come from the tremendous outreach that has been made between the rec department and our community at large. I think our community feels like they've been brought back into the fold. There's been a lot of communication, a lot of outreach. The open house was very successful, and that keeps our community involved. I think for a while our community felt that they were ignored, or maybe weren't as important as far as what kind of programs they were asking to be developed. So I think the outreach has made a really big difference.
You know, along with that, I also think that they were being pulled in two different directions. And that's ended.
Competition rather than.
Yeah, and that's ended. So I think that's a minor factor, but you're right, better programming. And we're gonna talk about getting better facilities. That's probably one of the key things we wanna talk tonight about. But, yeah, but programming and outreach, I think you're absolutely right.
I don't think there's any more comments, so we're back to you.
Okay, so, and,
Oh, there is a comment.
Can you ever make sure that you're speaking into a microphone? We can't hear a lot of what's going on up there.
okay, great. So we're gonna move to facilities and capital improvement plans. And I'm gonna start with Sage, and she's gonna talk a little bit about facilities and some needs and things like that. And then we're gonna move to Sunday, and then move to Robert was here, so we'll
You
skip
can all
Robert.
chime in.
Okay.
And before we do that, we have an empty seat here with a microphone in front of it, so probably we could shift a microphone down this way to use that one. You see the empty chair with the microphone?
You could shift it that way, so I'm fine with Austin.
There you go.
And I can turn mine towards you.
All right, well, so, capital improvement plan. It is impressive. There's a lot of things on there that we're really excited about. We don't have it ready, still working on it for this year, but what we put forward from last year and the things that are still on there are wonderful projects that everyone's looking forward to. And I also think that the community appreciates the reinvestment. And council has definitely put a priority on putting money in that capital improvement fund to do larger projects that will be, massive change for our community when some of these projects come down the pipe and they see what's going on. And I think that's appreciated. We are looking at it, I thought I was gonna talk more about the planning part, but I'll
Okay.
leap in. Do you want a list of what we're gonna do? Randy, what were you hoping for on this?
No, why don't we just start with, when we look at facilities, I'll jump back in this.
Okay.
We've got short-term and long-term needs. The short-term is kind of what we did this year, and that's part of that 5-year plan. And, we painted the facility, we recarpeted, we obviously gave the front end a tune-up, which it desperately needed. But that's the short-term. That's stuff that any city does with any of their facilities, and that's just general maintenance. What we need to look forward to and what we need to project is, what are the facility needs for the future? Like, for instance, gymnastics, the #1 program in the Recreation and Parks program. It sets up, it tears down for basketball. I mean, the gymnastics program could have its own community building. So when we're thinking of facilities and we're thinking of things of that nature, we're thinking the short term, and then we're thinking long term. And that's part of what we have to do when we look at facilities. What do we have, and what are the future needs that we're gonna need or that we require? Going to the capital improvement, like Sage said, we started out with a 5-year plan, and we keep revisiting that, and, you know, the elements that are on schedule to be done in 2014 are online. The money's coming in. There's no, we haven't seen anyone say that we're not gonna complete what is on our schedule. But again, that's short-term improvements. It's like resurfacing streets. Those are things that you have to do. Those aren't necessarily major capital improvements or major funding that you need to look at for the future of the city. So, having said that, I think when we talk about facilities, I think our facilities are in good shape, but I think that we're in need of better facilities. And I think that that's something that we're gonna have to identify as a community in the future is what we need.
When you mention the facilities, are you picturing specifically a separate building for the gymnastics programs, or a separate building to house what?
Well, yeah, I'd probably start with, how old is the recreation center? It's the original recreation center, right? That we've just kind of added a room here, added a room there, patched up the facade. We'd probably want to take the whole building down and probably start anew and actually give ourselves a gymnasium that could accommodate gymnastics, a gymnasium that could probably accommodate an indoor basketball program, which we have a great indoor basketball program. The multi-purpose room is somewhat small, could be larger. Again, if we're gonna move into providing graphic designs and visual and things of that element, you need a room, you need a source for it. You just can't plug a television or a monitor in. The infrastructure of it, you know, the electrical work, the cabling, we can just go on and on and on. So, so the vision would have to be a facility that can handle, you know, the needs of the 21st century. Well,
And I think that's part of what
It's
this is
also
about.
important to consider that he's talking long-term, so we
Right.
have to have a long-term vision.
And plan for that. And I think
Right.
that is somewhat a missing piece, and that's part of what's on here is long-term planning and short-term planning. And understandably, the long-term big plan for the whole system, programming facilities, is a very expensive idea and not something that's gonna be readily available to us right now. But knowing we want that and knowing that we need that is important to keep in our sights. And part of what we had on here was the long-term versus short-term. Well, how do we bite off pieces of that so that we're prepared as we're preparing this CIP? We have lots of ideas. Like, we know we would really like to have an outdoor basketball court because it's something we're missing. And there are different pieces that we all are aware of, and we've talked to people and we bring to the table, and some of that's already in the CIP as it goes out. But what we need to do, what we were talking about as a commission, is biting off a piece. Let's look at Sarzodi. And as we look at Sarzodi and create a master plan for Sarzodi, let's also see if it's possible in that to include a little bit of extra public outreach and extra public meetings, so that as we're doing that plan, we're learning more about our whole system. So maybe there's a way to get pieces of that huge vision through each smaller piece that we create for ourselves. But we absolutely need a new master plan for Sarzodi. As we are taking on doing more projects there, we have great ideas, but it would be better to step back and really have a good plan. And so I know our commission has talked about the parks tax, the $20,000. Those are ways that I think our commission has talked about would be a lovely way to spend that money, is for a master plan for Sarzodi as one piece. There are other, we could use there's various different things we could plan for, but as a commission, we look at that and go, this is a good time for this. We're looking at different projects there. We're looking at where would we put this outdoor basketball court. So it's, and it would be an opportunity to engage the public in a planning process that would specifically speak to Sarzodi, but possibly help us learn more about our whole system, our programming, and our different users.
And really looking at the space as well. And then
Yeah.
we're looking at new playground equipment at Libby.
Right.
But we also need it at Sarazoti, but is that the right space for it? And really looking holistically at the space and having a plan for the future. We've set up the capital improvement plan, and you're always a little behind, because by the time it's approved, we have the basketball court on there, but, we've had parents come to us, they want to see a scooter park, like things that you get the influx of parents coming, or community members that would like something that they see that we don't have. So how would that fit in instead of Band-Aiding the park and fixing?
Well, that's one of the biggest issues is every time we look at something short-term, we see something long-term is needed. So, for instance, the community says we need a basketball court. So we're presented one evening with a basketball court. It was an idea, it wasn't in concrete, although basketball courts are in concrete. But it was plotted in the front of the rec center. So it's an idea, it was a concept. It wasn't anything that was gonna happen, and we weren't voting on it or anything. But it was like, okay, we need a basketball court, so we're just gonna plop one in. We're going to repair the play equipment in the back, but the fence that surrounds the play equipment is completely shot. So, well, we're only talking about repairing the equipment, we're not talking about repairing the fence. So again, every short-term project, technically has long-term ramifications. So,
Kind of like remodeling a house.
Yeah.
yeah, sooner or later, you
Dig into it, and I got to do this before I can do this, before I can do this, before I can do this.
So when we look at short-term, we look at the capital improvement plan. That's the short-term. Those are money that's earmarked on an annual basis to keep the facilities running. But we need a vision of what we want these facilities to look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now. It's just like, I think Libby Bowl comes to mind. Libby Bowl was a facility that the city owned. Someone had a vision that, one, the facility needed to be rebuilt, needed to be repaired, but someone had a vision, and it took how long to bring that to fruition? It didn't happen overnight. It was a 10-year probably plan that someone said, wow, wouldn't it be great if we had a bowl, if we had, and it takes that long. And it took the community, a ton of community involvement to get that done. And that's what we're looking at technically for the recreation facilities. It's obviously not something that we would obviously like the city to be able to fund it all, but that may not be the way it goes. It may take a community, and it may take additional funding, just like we did Partners with Libby Bowl. It may take any way that we can to improve these facilities, but right now, all we're doing is maintaining them.
What comes to mind is, of course, in Arizona, what they have is recreation districts, and they run with, when you buy a house in a lot of communities, part of your real estate taxes is paying towards the recreation district, which offers swimming pools, classes in digital making, all things to attract every age group, but it runs with the parcel. So the question is, do we have the population here in the Ojai Valley that would approve, which you have to approve at 2/3 because it would be an added tax, a recreation district? If we could get a recreation district through, we could do all sorts of things. The thing is, it has to appeal to enough voters, even those who are elderly, to see that they would use it. And it would run with their real estate taxes. That's the way to get long-term funding. And to me, the fact that we do not have a community pool, what can I say? Look how hot it's been for the last months. There's no reason to me that Ojai does not have a community pool. And that's the biggest flaw I see in our recreation, and every age uses a pool. It costs, I don't even know what I pay for the racket club, but basically that's the only pool going. And it's great that Villanova has worked with us, but why don't we have a swimming pool?
And Chair Haney, I do understand that this is all a work in progress. These are all ideas, and the part that I hear it's pretty exciting is that the programs are doing pretty well right now. It's right now identifying how the future, how to enhance those, and how to implement programs that are needed in our community, which is great. And I think that if that's something the commission and our recreation staff want to tackle, I think that's pretty appropriate. How we do that, we need to work that out and come up with options, whether it be a tax or how we're going to fund it. That all comes along. I'm really interested. I know there are pieces, and I hear that we don't really have concrete ideas of how we're going to do it or what programs we're going to implement. But it sounds like you guys want to start with Sarasota plan update. Do you guys have a better feel of what your visions are for that section? Or because right now we're talking all about broad, and it sounds to me like there still needs to be more discussion.
I think we wanted to possibly propose using the park tax fund that we found out about this year, to possibly hire a professional to create a plan for Sarasota, because and also possibly ask for funding for capital improvement.
But you're asking specifically why Sarasota?
Yeah,
Yes.
just for Sarasota.
I think if you look at our CIP, there's a lot of things identified in Sarasota, either to place there or to replace or, enhance, and various different projects are already going on or proposed there. And so I think it does come to mind that with all of these different CIP projects that are on the books already and things that need to be done there, it's an ideal starting place because we have a lot that is in the next few years hopefully going to be accomplished there. So before you start that, it really is a piece of property, and it would be nice to get this big view of it with a perspective of here are all the different variables we might like to have in there. Here's the public's engaged in this. How would we fit it here? What would it look like? And
that would involve a lot of public comments and community involvement and workshops and with the professional that we would hire.
Mr. Chair, I tend to agree that what we ought to do is look at the overall plan for Sarasota and get it up to date, because I think we do have a plan, but
We
bring
have
it
to
up to
update
date.
it.
And have the things that we want in that plan, and have the person that's doing the plan be able to tell us, all right, if we want an outside basketball court, here's where the placement of that basketball court would be. And you can either do that first or you can do it last, but this is where it's going to be. Same thing with the pool. If we want a
Exactly.
community pool, put that on the plans. If you can do it first, great. If you have to do it last, great. But at least we're not doing it in a hodgepodge manner that who knows, if you just put the basketball court where it was proposed, you'd probably have to tear the basketball court up if you were going to do something else.
Exactly.
So I really think it's time to have a professional really look at an overview plan. And then that gives you the flexibility to do portions of it at a time, knowing that you can only afford to do this now, but you're not going to have to tear it out when you do the next thing.
right.
That's exactly.
And I also think that having been involved in the Libby Bowl project and having been somewhat involved in the Skate Ojai project, we may have to get public involved in order to raise some funds. And after all, it's their facility, so I don't feel bad about asking the public to participate in the fundraising at all. So I think that that's what we do, because the facilities are getting old and they're not real manageable at this point, although we did a really nice job in remodeling or giving it a facelift. But the overall building, I think, needs to be looked at, and I think it needs to be looked at as soon as we can do it. But I think the overall plan is what we need to do first. And that's what I would really hope, that you guys could give us some input on that. Because I think that if we've got some money to do that, now's the time to do it.
Yeah. I think that's-
Mr. Chair, I have a comment. I agree that the place to start is a master plan for Sarasota Park. That seems to be where our focus is right now. And with the drought that we're currently in, the idea of a swimming pool doesn't get a lot of excitement, but that doesn't mean we can't start thinking about it now. The original plans, I think, had the pool at Libby Park, in Libby Park. Is that still where we would want the pool?
But see, this is the discussion we have to have. And I think even out of the Sarasota discussion and the Sarasota master plan, there may be no room for a pool at Sarasota.
Right.
But what comes out of the public involvement in that process is, wow, there's really a desire for this. So that's, I mean, if we could start really huge, it'd be great, but we can't. So we'll start here, and we can use the information that we get, and then move forward. What's the next plan? What are the needs, and how do we then identify?
Well, and those change daily.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. For instance, one of the issues at the skateboard park is the scooters. A short-term quick fix would be to find the funding as quick as you can. Get a small scooter park built, at one of our facilities. Get those children out of that space and get them on a recreation center. And that is something that shouldn't take 10 years or 15 years to do. That's something that we could look at quickly. But again, where do you plot that in on, and where do you plot it at what facility? So, maybe planning, someone in the planning department might have a skill set that might be able to help us do that, short term. And again, maybe we do have to, look at the funding that we do have right now and hire someone to help us make those decisions. But that's a problem, and that's an issue that has to be dealt with quickly. And it can be, I feel, with what the resources that we have available in the city and the facilities that we have. But again, that's part of that, oh, look at that popped up, and now we've got to solve that issue. Or the basketball court, everyone would love one. Where do we place it? Where's the proper placement? I don't know personally about owning a pool. I think the city of Fillmore put one in, and I don't know if they're having a whole lot of luck with that pool.
I've heard Ventura's not real happy either.
So we have two beautiful pools in this valley, probably if you counted the Racket Club, Villanova, as well as Nordhoff. I think it's just a matter of how we can get something going with the school board, getting back to what we used to have. They've got to filter it, they've got to clean it. I mean, that body of water is sitting there. We need to figure out how to get access to
I
it.
agree, and we used to use the pool, and
Right.
then we got sideways somewhere along the way, and I think that needs to be, those ill feelings need to be mended.
Right.
And my understanding is public pools somebody at one point told me they cost $1 million a year. Rob, do you happen to know any statistics on what a public pool costs a year? I've heard huge figures.
I don't have any numbers off the top of my head, but you're absolutely correct. The operating cost is something to really focus on when you're looking at something like that.
I've understood it's huge, and I have heard that Ventura's kind of choking on what they've done down there. It's a great facility, but it's a huge financial burden. Building it's one thing, but keeping it operational and.
I have to say, though, our current relationship with Villanova is excellent. The programs run very well there. People are very pleased with that particular pool. Replacing that with the Nordhoff pool would be a real change in our, in what we're doing. And it's not something I think that, I think people are very happy with what's happening at Villanova, and the facility is fabulous. So
It's such a nice facility.
we're very lucky.
Okay, I'm
Great
gonna
partnership.
finish up because I think I got sidetracked,
Yes.
but I like all the input. This is really good. And what I was gonna say is that I like the idea of focusing on a master plan for Sarasota Park. But we also have a master plan in existence. Do we want to just leave that master plan out there in the ether somewhere, or do we want to look at it and say this is no longer a viable idea? Do we want to integrate the master plan that exists at the same time we're looking at Sarasota, or do we want to just set it aside completely and focus strictly on Sarasota?
Well, from my perspective, it's an informative piece to whoever the consultant, the planner is, as part of their process. But as far as taking it and trying to integrate it in, I don't think that's useful. I think this process should be unto itself what we see now for Sarasota Park. But I think it's good information for a starting point.
I was just saying, it's dated, and I think, like you said, we can use that to create
They're
a new
having
one.
difficulty hearing you out there, and I've got the wire caught here.
When was that master plan written?
I think it was 10 years ago.
It was 1993 for Sarasota Park.
93?
Yeah, well,
93.
our element was when,
That's
Yeah.
more than 20 years ago.
Right.
Oh,
as is
yeah.
the recreation element as well.
Maybe have the
Yeah.
consultant review
They
it.
can look
but
at it, but
It's
Certainly
really,
not a blueprint for a plan, I wouldn't think.
Well, and again, the needs of the community have changed dramatically, so. But, so you can see where we are. And we've talked about it a lot as a commission. And it's just, we think that there's monies available to start the process. We just don't want to jump in with both feet and start treading water. We want to think this through and use that money wisely. It's not a lot, so.
You're saying we should use the money available to hire a professional?
Yes.
Who will assess the community, assess what's available, assess what the budget is, and come up with a plan that has gotten a lot of input. Correct.
Possibly there may need more money than what's available there to really get the plan that we're looking for.
Mr.
Well,
Haney?
I guess I still have the floor here. So we've obviously talked programming, we've obviously talked facilities and capital improvement. Again, the long-term and the short-term needs of the community, you know, there's quite a, you know, we just talked about the recreation element, and how we're gonna be able to actually attach a committee to that, because that's probably one of the biggest issues facing the city of Ojai, just in general, is how we can take the national parks, how we can take all the hiking, all the biking, all the horse trails. How do we bring all of this in to the recreation program and into the recreation element? That's a huge task. That's again, that was written back in.
It's older than the Sarzodi plan.
Okay.
I don't remember the year at the moment.
I think it's the 70s.
Well, I can't remember.
But if you read it, it does make sense. There's just there's the bike path. There are so many elements that utilize our community, you know, from the bike path to the horse trails, to the hiking trails, to the recreation centers, you know, from passive recreation to, I mean, there's just a multitude of things that need to be reviewed and looked at. So that would be one thing that we're going to have to do, as well as be able to take a look at the Sarazodi, as well as looking at Libby Bowl and Libby Park, and what are the needs and you know, what are the uses of it right now and how we can enhance those or improve those. So we have a lot to do here.
But it sounds like a good idea to focus first on the Sarazodi master plan. And granted, it may be a short-term, a 5-year fix, even a 10-year fix. But if we have that plan in place, even if we're patching here and there, we eventually have a vision toward which we're working.
Madam Mayor, also, and Chair Haney, and it also seems like we need to have or start some type of relationship with the school district, because it just seems like we could be more efficient, and it looks more practical with them being in the picture in many ways to me. For example, if we were to do this update, how could we use their facilities and in trade have them, when this facility is built, use our facilities and vice versa? So there needs to be some type of communication with the school district, and I would like us to begin that. So.
Well, just historically, we have had many interactions with the school district because, of course, we have so many mutual interests. So this is nothing new. It goes up and down. I mean, the latest is because I think the possibility to have a park for scooters was turned down by the school district because they are always in the situation of looking at selling that land, which is a huge asset that is on Ojai Avenue. Even, it's obviously the perfect place for a community pool, too. But their answer would be the same. As long as they have funding that is really up in the air, they have to look at their bottom line, and they don't want to commit them. And there's nothing wrong with reopening it, but I don't want to give the impression that we haven't worked closely with the school district. Severo, we have.
And that wasn't my intention. I was just hearing earlier in the conversation that something happened and we needed to amend it. So I wasn't indicating we never did, so.
Well, and I think it's a suggestion to explore the opportunities for both agencies to benefit. And I think that's a great idea, and I'm not sure how you do that, if you start a committee or some form of open format, so we can see where those opportunities are.
Maybe another question that can be answered is, instead of, we have worked with the school district over the years on various things, but maybe a question that we should ask and answer is a joint powers agreement between the city and the school district more advantageous than pursuing a special recreation district? Would a special recreation district take the economic load off of both agencies? We're so guarded in our funding right now, we're almost afraid to enter into agreements that's going to cost us additional funds. So that question should be answered. Which would work best for our situation? Joint powers agreement or a recreation district?
Madam Mayor, and with a recreation district, we have to work with the county because we're going to be reaching out to people in the county. So, and that's where it gets extremely complicated. And quite often, any sort of bond that goes forward with something like a district, if you couple it with something else that's appealing to another body, you have a better chance of passing it. So if you had a recreation district coupled with an open space initiative or something like that, you have a more likelihood of getting it to pass because the person who's not interested in recreation but open space will vote for the open space, and vice versa. The person who doesn't care about the open space cares about recreation. You can bring in a larger group of people, more likelihood of having a bond of this sort pass or a district like this pass. But we would have to have some sort of, I don't know even how you begin to have a dialogue with the county about this, but I think that's a huge undertaking. But I think when we're talking long-term, that's the solution.
Yeah.
Because you've got to get the funding because this community bears the burden for the valley. And it's just, we're too small of a community, a town. We have so many unfunded mandates, from the housing element to all these other things that come down from the state with no funding for them, that continue to be added and burden our general fund. So it becomes less and less reasonable or sustainable for us to be bearing the burden of a recreation department. Realistically, for its long-term success, it has to go to a recreation district. So I would really like to see us pursue that as a long-term goal and a short-term goal. Start with the 20,000, get the consultant in there, see what we can get going on that. But I think, but also if we're going to go into sort of a long-term recreation district thing, we can't say, oh, yeah, we got to do that. And 3 years later, well, we haven't done that. So I think it's something that has to be, say, okay, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to start it next, whenever. Poor Mr. Clark's over there going, now what am I going to have to add off my...
And
One more thing.
I just want to interject too, that as much as there's a burden, there's also, the opportunities we have are also available to us because people outside the city participate. From an actual programming standpoint, we would not have the diverse programming that we have without those people coming in. And I understand that's a huge burden, but I just want to make clear that what we have also is dependent upon the numbers that we draw on now.
Right, but that being said, the tax dollars from this community also support that as well as the fees. So if we had the tax dollars coming from the county, that is going to increase our funding. So it's just, to me, it's a no-brainer.
I absolutely am supportive of a parks district, but I always just want to make sure that it's clear to everybody that what we have now, which is very rich in many ways, is not, we wouldn't have that if we were just drawing from people in the city itself.
Oh, I agree completely.
That's,
But we need to figure out how to make it better. And the way to make
Absolutely.
it better is to get a district, really.
Absolutely.
And probably one other thing that we need to look at is we can't let that be a deterrent to
What be a deterrent?
how we're going to fund it, when is it going to be funded, to the vision of that we need to go get it.
Right.
Because that's one of the things that happens. Oh, my God. Well, there's just no way the city can afford that. There's no way that we're going to do it. And the reality is that stops the wheel of progress. And we need to be looking forward.
And I think you need to be ready when the time is right. And to be clear, it hasn't been right for a while. To go after any special district would be a very hard sell over our recent past. So I think part of it is we do investigate it and we look for it and we look for the right time.
Yeah, and it does take a while to set like something like that up, and then you're prepared, and then you're ready to strike when the moment is right. So rather than waiting till the moment's right and then not having your ducks in a row, you could lose your opportunity. So you need to build that foundation, have it ready, so when this is the election that we can get this thing passed, you're ready to roll. So otherwise it just the can gets kicked down the road, and we continue to not have a pool and not have additional funding to provide. Even bring in computers for a multimedia program. So to me, it's a two-pronged thing. It's getting the short-term $20,000 dedicated to this plan, and then the other prong being starting in whatever way to do this, because I've never done it before, how we start the ball rolling on that.
Yeah. One other thing, though, to keep in mind with a special district, because it is going to be part of the county, there's other facilities besides ours that are going to be funded, such as Oakview. Who knows what Miners Oaks may want out of it? There's going to be portions of the county that are going to take money off the top, and there's going to be more households funding from the county than there is from the city. So just because we're going to have a special district doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're going to be in the money for our particular facilities. We obviously draw, but who's to say that the county supervisors aren't going to say, well, now that we have this district, we're going to start improving the facilities in Oakview, which then means that maybe we'll lose people that are participating here.
Well, then wouldn't you have for that district an independent body?
Well, there are different, aren't there, I mean, we're getting into the weeds a little bit,
Yeah.
but aren't there different types of special districts? And how they are governed depends on the type of special district you choose to form.
Right.
And when you form the special district, it isn't governed by the county Board of Supervisors any more than the city is, because it's its own government body. But we're in the weeds here, but maybe Steve or Rob would like to weigh in on.
It seems to me, though, if we were to form a special recreation district, and we followed, let's say, the lines of Ojai Unified, one thing would have to be determined is what makes people buy who are coming to the Ojai Valley. What are the interests of these people who buy in the Ojai Valley? We have expensive real estate. There must be a reason that they want to buy here. If they have school-age children, maybe some reasons, but I cannot tell you how many people choose to retire in the Ojai Valley. And their interests certainly include recreation, too. So it seems to me that a professional, if we hired him to look at the needs, to look at the potential for a recreation district, would look at the real estate sales, who are the age of these people buying, and what attracted them to the Ojai Valley, and what do they expect to find here. Because I think if you have those statistics, then you have a potential voting group that are saying, yes, we came here because of this, this, and this. And these are things that are offered by the Recreation District, and therefore I have no problem in it being part of my real estate taxes.
And
That's
And
what
I
I
have
want to
another
be here
comment,
for.
and then we'll go to you. And that is, I think the most important thing we're doing is we're talking about it. Our talking about it, it's being televised, the community will think about it. Even if we take no action right now, even if we don't have the plan in place, it's important that we all at least are considering it. That's what builds the momentum, I think.
Well, there's two things as well. There's two things as well. One is that the Ojai Unified School boundary doesn't include Oakview.
Well,
So
part
that,
of Oakview, or is all of Oakview out?
I think it's,
In Oakview.
yeah. So really the draw would be primarily Miners Oaks. And a little bit of, in East End, a little bit of Miramonte, I
I think
suppose.
the interesting thing about this, if council has the will to go forward with this, I think the commission is fully supportive in any way that we could support the council in the pursuit of a recreation district. I will speak for myself, would be happy to participate and help with that, and whatever role the commission can play in that, I think the commission would be happy to play, and so I think if council is interested in pursuit of that, I think that's.
All right.
And
I'd like
also, when
to-
we talk about, one other thing I wanted to add, I'm not quite done, is that we talk about not having families come to the valley. Well, like Councilwoman Smith is saying, one of the draws when you have expensive real estate is, well, there's expensive real estate, but we have this incredible recreation department here in this community for my children. There's a media program, there's a swimming pool, there's a wilderness program, so that there's more of a lure to bring in families, because there's more to offer that way for them. And people don't want to drive down the hill to do this stuff. We all know it. It's like, oh, God, I got to go down the hill. You know, you just don't want to do it. So that's a real thing, and it benefits the school district. So to me, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the county residents, a win for the city residents, and it's a win for the school district all the way around. So to me, I think we really should, seriously, we talked about it enough through the years, the last 4 or 5 years, about how we need to do this.
I think that is a long-term goal. It's the Sarzodi plan has the short-term goal, and the long-term goal is to look seriously at a recreation district, what we could offer every age group in the valley. And funding it would probably have to be in terms of a percentage on real estate taxes. But people buying in know that they would have a pool. They know they would have jewelry making classes. They'd have digital print classes, all these things. I couldn't believe what is offered in Arizona, which is a lot of times 55 and over communities. But that became a big plus for a lot of retired people, because it included all these activities at a very reasonable fee. They paid for the pool, but they paid like $5 or something. You know, it was very reasonable because they paid into the recreational district.
And we have to remember too that there's other entities in our city that are providing recreation. Little House provides recreation, the Oaks provides recreation in their pool for a lot of senior citizens. So there's a lot of other things that the senior citizens can do as well in Ojai.
Okay, it seems like I think we are in agreement that a short-term goal is taking a look at a master plan for Sarasota Park, using the 20,000 to do that, and a long-term objective would be the organization of a recreation district.
And the
Mr.
short term,
Haney.
and the short term of that is to turn around and talk to our city manager. And see what's on his agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like us to finish up. We've got about 3.5 minutes before the regular council meeting. Any other, Mr. Haney?
No, I think we had a great hour. I appreciate you meeting with us.
Any other comments?
Thank you to all the commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Adjourned.
All right.